The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on May 13th, 2025.
Welcome to Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce. And now here's your host, the president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, Pam Tumpap. Good morning, Pam.
Hey, good morning, Gary. How are you?
I am doing excellent, but it's a little, it's muggy down here today.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's pretty still up in Pukalani, but it looks like a beautiful day.
Summer sure came by fast, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yes, and again, I hope we see scattered rain throughout the summer, so it doesn't just get to be too hot again.
Right,
yeah.
right. No hurricanes,
Yeah.
just rain.
Yeah, no hurricanes, just rain. Thank you. Exactly. Yeah, that's so true. Well, thank you so much for all you do for the show. We're so grateful for all of your assistance to help us produce the show this morning. And just want to welcome everybody to Business Matters. Today we're going to talk with Susie Thieman, Executive Director for Lokahi Pacific, and discuss the challenges still facing Maui County residents when it comes to housing. And we're going to meet with Jeff Pape of Vacant Rentals Maui and talk about the fun and challenging world of heavy equipment rentals. So that's going to be a lot of fun to hear about, especially since we have a lot of heavy equipment on island these days and a lot of work going on. So first, I'm just glad to welcome back Susie Thieman, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific, a nonprofit housing and community development organization based in Wailuku, Maui. Since its incorporation in 1971, Lokahi Pacific has been dedicated to improving the quality of life for residents of Maui County and other rural Hawaiian communities through the development of affordable and special needs housing, as well as community facilities. Under Susie's leadership, Lokahi Pacific has tackled various projects aimed at enriching the economic climate of the county and making sure that residents benefit from these developments. Most recently, they were contracted by the Maui County to administer the Ohana Assistance Program, which offers grants of up to $100,000 to help resident property owners in building accessory dwellings. Help resident property owners build accessory dwellings. And so I'm thrilled to welcome Susie to the show this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about that program and some of the things that she keeps getting questions about with respect to that program. So good morning, Susie. How are you this morning?
I'm fine, Pam. I'm sitting here looking at my wonderful view of, as friends come to visit who don't understand the ocean, they say it's a view of both oceans. Which one's which? My coastal view of Nebraska, they don't understand. Anyway,
it's a beautiful day up country, huh?
Yes, it is. Almost makes me want to stay at work today, but not going to happen.
I hear that. I hear that. Well, I'm so glad to have you on the show, and there has been a lot going on with the Ohana Assistance Program. Can you give everybody an overview of how the program was started and what the program was meant to accomplish?
I sure can. And to say a lot has been going on is kind of, I don't know if it's an overstatement or an understatement, because all this going on is not producing the Ohanas.
Right.
Anyway, the whole thing started back in, what was it, 23, when the council, under the leadership of Alice Lee, passed the program to help people build these Ohana units in their yards. These were folks, basically, as she understood it from the housing department, that a lot of folks had gone to get up their permits to build their units, and as the permitting process took so long, as we all know, the prices of the materials grew to the point where they couldn't afford the unit they wanted to build. And so they were getting frustrated at trying to help. Now, remember, this is prior to the fire. So we're talking about a whole different set of people than what we've been concentrating on here in the last almost 2 years. So the intent was that these folks who had their permits in hand would be applying for this $100,000 grant. And for many of them, it would be most of the cost of the unit. For some, they were building a little bigger or nicer units or more custom units. And so they were willing to put in their share of the money to build what they wanted. And the whole intent was that this was to help people who were stuck in the rental market and having to pay the exorbitant prices that were being asked of the normal landlords.
Right.
So trying to help folks so that maybe at some point they could afford to buy their own houses with the savings that they had that they were able to accumulate. Meant to be the average working person with a single, with a family, whatever the case was. But it was the rent would be based on the HUD AMI percentages, and they had to guarantee that they would rent it to that person, or not necessarily that person, but like people for 10 years to basically that would pay off the $100,000 that they were getting to build, and at 10% per year. Where they're not exchanging any money. It's just a commitment to abide by the rules. I looked at it and I thought that was a great idea.
We thought it was a no-brainer. We thought it was fantastic. We thought it was fantastic. Yeah. Increased inventory, great investment, and a 10-year commitment.
Right. And as you know, we built affordable housing subdivisions, and we haven't been able to build one. And the last one was completed 7 years ago. I'm chomping at the bit to build something, but we just can't find land at a reasonable price. And construction we could do, but the council keeps changing kind of the rules on building affordable housing. And so I didn't want to get caught in any of this confusion that a lot of the developers are going through as they've started projects over the last few years. So I've stepped back, and I thought this was a great way to get back into it without actually building the houses.
Right.
So it intrigued me. And when they put out the RFP for somebody to handle the project, I decided to take a good look at it. And I met with 3 of the top people in the housing department. And again, remember that this was the time that they were talking about bifurcating the Department of Housing and Human Concerns. So it was a little tricky there as to who we were working with. Excuse me.
That's correct.
Anyway, so the top people from housing that I was working with, we sat down and we laid out the plans for how we would handle it. And we had a guideline, a booklet that we put together of who does what and when and so forth to make this thing really just roll. And our position was that we were going to handle the administrative side of things when it came to putting out the application, doing the judging on the applications, and then we would turn it over to the county, the housing department, to actually give out the grants because they already had a program in place, the first-time homebuyers program. And that program basically had the same type of documents that would be needed for this one. So we figured it made more sense for them to just go ahead and do it because they were used to doing this. And that way we stayed out of it. We would hire the inspector who would be going out and inspecting these projects. And their payments, they would get 4 equal payments based on the 4 inspections that we would have done. Once the inspector turned in his report to us, we would approve it, send it over to the county. They would pay the next installment, and it would just run as smoothly as could be. Over the 10-year period, we would step in once a year and get a report from the people as to who was, if they still had their tenant, what they were paying for rent, so that they met the qualifications that they had agreed to. It sounded like a great plan. Simple, right?
Yeah, it sounds, well, I'm not going to say simple, but it sounds like that you had thoroughly thought through it and created a great plan that would make it simple.
Well, that's what we thought. Everybody was doing what they're best at.
Yeah.
So that's how we started. So we get basically a service contract, And we put in a budget for our services spread out over the 10 years that we would be working on it. And we get a contract back that's got everything in it, the whole $2.5 million that was put into the pot for the project. And I questioned why that was in there. And I was told, well, we have to encumber the funds because we're getting close to the end of the year. And if the funds aren't encumbered, we're going to lose them. And so I said, okay, what the heck? You've got my budget in this contract. It shows very clearly what we're going to be paid for, et cetera. So I went ahead and I signed the contract. We put out the applications. They were out there for 30 days. Is my dog interfering with this?
No, it's okay. We know we've got. We have dog interference on this end from time to time, too. It's okay. We can hear you.
And anyway, so we put out the application for 30 days. We got something like 114 applications. Some were finished. They had the permits included. Some had applied for the permits once they heard about this program. And then others, they threw in, like is typical. Some people would just throw in an application and see what happens. Right. So I think we ended something like 18 or so who were polished, ready to go. And then there were another 20 or so that had applications for permits. And so they were in the next tier if there was still money available. Yeah. As they got their permits, they would let the housing department know, and they'd move up and get qualified. Well, we turned over the information for the judges the middle of August. So we had a total of 6 weeks of real targeted work on this. I mean, I was answering phone calls, talking to people who came in the door, wanted more information. I think I had something like 600 phone calls that I had listed on my sheet of folks that I talked to and what the different discussions were about. And I was trying to keep good records because I thought this was a great program and I was hoping it would continue. And so the background would be good, whether we did it the next time around or somebody else did, I could pass that information off and give them a head start. So here we are in the middle of August. We turned in the information to the county. We expected that by like mid-September, letters would have gone out to the people who were being awarded grants, and the ball would be rolling.
Now you're talking August 2024.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Just so we can give everybody the timeline, because it's coming. It's going to be really close to a year soon. Okay.
Right. You're fine. And so we had, as we kind of left out the fire because that happened shortly after we were negotiating all this. But the intent of this program, this was a pilot program, and that was important for people to remember. This wasn't meant to be a cure-all for everybody. It was a pilot program to see if there was a need or an interest, or both.
Right.
And certainly the need was shown and the interest was shown. The fire created some issues for us because we don't like saying no to people, but sometimes their situation just didn't match the criteria that had been laid out. And so Chairman Lee called me in for a meeting to talk about the future. She wanted to put more money in the program and include more of the people that were injured, not physically necessarily, but by losing their houses and properties in Lahaina, and change the rules a little bit so they qualified for something. And so it was difficult talking to those folks and having to say, no, I can't help you right now. But there's possibility in the future. So when I talk about the future, I'm talking about maybe 6 months from now, there'll be something new. And this again, we're talking right after the fire. We're talking within months after the fire. And so when we got to the point where nothing happened within that month after we turned over all the information to the county, I started getting phone calls from people saying, okay, what's next? Did we forget to do something, or why haven't we been notified? And I said, I'm sorry, but I can't answer that question. I said, it's in the hands of housing. And so the housing folks gave me an email address to give everybody, and that's what they were supposed to do, was to email that address and they would get their answers. Well, apparently that didn't work, because month after month I'd get these phone calls back from these people saying, nobody responded. Or they'd make a phone call over there and nobody answered, or the person who's taking care of this is off, or they're on leave, or they're this or that. And I'm going, this is insane. What the heck? Anyway, we're sitting there and I mean, it's driving me crazy because we don't default on our work. It's, right. We did our job and here our name was the one everybody remembers because our name was on the application. So we finally get a notice from somebody, I can't remember who it was over at housing, saying that there was something wrong with the contract. It's illegal. And I said, oh, really? Okay, all the attorneys over there and the programs they have, like that first-time home buyers, how can they get a contract wrong, a service contract? It's very basic. The problem that I did not know about was that the county code does not allow for the county to give funds directly to individuals. And I said, well, that's kind of
They've done it, though, right? They did it before.
7 or 8 years with another program. But anyway, that's another story. So I said, okay, if it's illegal, just cancel it. And then, well, no, we want to give you the grant so you do the whole thing. And I said, look, I told you up front, I am not going to handle the legal aspects. You guys have that in your files. Just fix them up and get them out and let's go. We'll handle what we said we would handle right from the start, even in the response to the RFP. And they said, well, if you want to cancel the contract. And I said, wait a minute, wait. I'm not talking about canceling the contract. You're the one that told me it's an illegal contract. And I said, I'm not an attorney like you folks are, but to me, that sounds like I don't have a contract.
Right.
Well, you do. It's on paper. And I said, no, come on, semantics. 2 weeks later, I get another document to sign, and this is a mutual termination of the contract. I said, hey, I'll sign it. I'm fine. We're done. That was the end of it for us. But that was, that was like 6 to 8 months to get to that point. And I asked, what's the status? I'm still getting phone calls. Well, we're still working on the contract. There's some issues. The last thing I heard was a report to the council of, I think it was one of the budget meetings, where the director of housing said that he was just finally reviewing what he hopes to be the final draft of the contract. And one of the council members asked, well, when does that mean the money's going to start flowing? And he estimated that probably during the first quarter of the new year, of the next year. Now, to me, that meant July, because that's the new quarter for all county people, or the new year.
Fiscal year. Yeah.
So we'll see.
So first quarter. So this summer, we're looking to see money flowing. Is the best hope.
That's the best hope, right? And he assured them. In the meantime, they had told all the people who qualified, go ahead and start building, and we will reimburse you. And I said, you told them what? That they could go ahead and start building. And I said, well, that was the whole problem. They couldn't because they didn't have the money to build at this point. And he said, yeah, but they had some, so they could start. And I said, so I'm thinking to myself, you're telling these people, okay, take all your money out of your savings, take all the money out of your 401k, take whatever you've got and invest it and start building on the promise that we will repay you.
Maybe I don't understand how long reimbursements take in the county process.
Well, not only that,
as you and I and many nonprofits know.
Right. Well, but the big question in my mind was, are you doing inspections? Right.
What's the process for getting the reimbursement, to making sure that the program's working?
Right, and that they're building a quality home.
Right.
I don't know the answer to that. I still don't, and I'm not sure that I want to ask that question.
No, but it's an important question that we need to bring up so that it is asked, because the whole premise of this, and the other thing was also that the folks who could do this, they also still had to live in their home too. So
Right.
you had to be a homeowner to do this, because we were getting questions at the chamber where people who had land and said, if we could get $100,000, we'll put up a rental and be happy to do it, but they weren't fully living on their home, so they didn't qualify for applying. But now here we are, people have been waiting a long time. How many of them do you think, and again, they're saying now, we don't have the money up front, so you've got to do this and we'll reimburse you. And we know that takes a long time. And we don't know what the process for reimbursement is. How is this impacting those who applied and were on the approved list, where knowing that there were segments of the approved list, but those early adopters who were clearly ready, they've been waiting now, let's see, so we go from August to May. How are they impacting? How are they being impacted by this? Are you hearing people moving forward? Is everybody just waiting? In the meantime, we know prices are going up, so the cost to build is much greater, this far out than it was when this program started.
Well, I really can't answer that because I've not kept in touch with everybody. Like I said, we turned basically all of our files over to the county. And so I don't have contact information for a lot of them. And since I'm out of it, I really shouldn't be bothering people, I don't think, or reminding them of the they're facing. But I know that some of them were adamant that they needed to get that unit built. They tried to build it 2 years prior. Some of them already had 2 years on their permit. Now they've got 3. So it's like I can't say off the top of my head how many went ahead and tried. I know that the recent article in Maui Now from who was that from? Maui Now, or it was in Maui Now. The Hawaii Journalism Initiative. Colleen's story. It highlighted one of the guys who went ahead and built. But I mean, he's a retired gentleman and he needed it built, and so he went ahead. But now, if something happens to them, some physical issue, whatever, they're kind of stretched because they've just given up all their savings and all their potential until they get reimbursed. And you're right. I mean, the reimbursement is a whole nother issue that we can talk about. Are we about ready for a break?
Actually, we've got about 2 minutes, but we're getting close to a break.
And what we'll talk about is the delays in reimbursements and how that's a scary word to a lot of people these days. That is a very scary word, and I appreciate you bringing this up. And this is a program that you've been, really integrally involved in. Work with them on a plan so that this could, expeditiously move forward once, with the funding approved. We did also mention there was a change in the structure, right, with the bifurcation of the department to a housing specific division. So, a lot of changes. So when we come back in just a minute. Oh, go ahead. The other thing I might really quickly is that the 3 people I was working with have all resigned, quit, or retired.
Yeah, and that makes it really challenging as we start up again with new personnel and trying to move it forward, and everybody wasn't on the same page as when you began this. Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to go back to just briefly, because you had mentioned that originally when you set up this plan, that the reimbursements were scheduled to be in, a form payment reimbursement. So people weren't having to wait for, till the total end to get reimbursed. And you also mentioned, again, the process of like inspections. Can you talk for a minute about when building this plan, why that was important? Because I know you were looking to make sure not only that the quality of the house was built, but also that people were still qualifying and meeting the standards. Can you just maybe say a couple of sentences on that as well?
Sure. Actually, if I said reimbursements, that was kind of erroneous because actually the first inspection was going out to our inspector going out to check on the lot itself to make sure it was advertised in the grant application, that it met the standards for the size of the unit going into the space, that it met like the fire department having room to get to the unit if there was an emergency. All the different things that go into putting a safe home for someone on somebody's lot.
Yeah,
with that inspection, get the first payment. So they actually would get the first payment so they could start building. And then there was, the foundation, and then there was wiring or plumbing. I think it was plumbing and electrical, and then the finished walls. So those were the four. So before the thing was totally finished, they had their money.
Nice. So if they're getting money at phases along the way in advance. Yeah.
Right. If there was, if they were more than the 100,000, their money would come in at the tail end or along the way. If it was for more than, if the price at that point was more than the allotment of $25,000.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, and that's I'm glad we went back to that, because that's an important piece. Because again, these people are already homeowners. They're looking to build these Ohana units, and this helps them do that in a way with the commitment that they're going to do the long-term rental in those units for 10 years.
Right.
So this is a good, this was a good return on investment for the county, in terms of creating housing solutions in this pilot project. So let's talk a little bit about, again, the delays in this program and others, and the challenges many nonprofits are facing, especially with getting delayed on reimbursement, and how it's affecting, from your perspective, the community's trust in government processes and programs.
Well, it's actually, it's nothing to talk about. I mean, it's something you don't want to talk about, I should say, but it needs to be said. The process has gotten very slow, and different steps have been thrown into it. We had an issue just last week, it was, where we sent in a final on one of our projects, and they said, wait a minute, we just got something. In reviewing the final, they went back to look at the first one that we had turned in several months ago, and they came back and said, oh, these two things are in this that we reimburse you for that are illegal, because there's no line item, or there under this line item, it doesn't mention, what was it, entertainment, I think. It was a parade and ho'olalea type thing. And they said under the ho'olalea, it just had for setup and security and so forth. But what we had put down as what we wanted to be reimbursed for was entertainment at the ho'olalea. And so they wanted to take that off. And we said, wait a minute, that was like 6 months ago. What's going on? And they said, well, they just caught it. Well, they'd reimbursed us for that. Now they're doing the final, and they want to take off like a third of our final bill because of that. And luckily, the project had some other cash that people had donated to, so we were able to take it out of that instead. But it's like, wait a minute, what do you mean you just caught it? You approved it and paid it.
Right.
So how many people are checking these things 2 and 3 times? And why wasn't that in your file when you got the final to compare the whole thing? We spent the budget, and now there's questions. But that's just one issue. I mean, other things, you've got a department which is requiring copies of canceled checks that you paid that actual bill before you submitted it. They don't accept the front of a copy off of your bank statement. They want the check copy front and back to prove. Matter of fact, we had one sent back to us because the person didn't sign it on the back. And we said,
right.
Wait a minute, a lot of banks just let you, they know you. They just go ahead and do it.
That. We've had that as well. And we've had a question on a signature, or we've had it, they were saying it was ineligible. I mean, not ineligible, excuse me. It was ineligible because it was illegible. And so we had to, and they couldn't read it. So then we had to, get darker copies, and even then, that's not how people sometimes sign. You can't necessarily make out the exact name, but it was clearly signed, and the bank processed it.
Well, I mean, it's getting unreal. And yesterday, I just got a new grant document to me, and they're changing the quarters now. Did you know that?
I have heard that. Yes, I'm not aware of it, but I think somebody mentioned it.
Quarterly is always done, the usual quarters: January through March, April through June, July to September, and October through December. That's a quarter. It doesn't make any difference when the contract starts. It can start on April 4th, and it's still going to be the first quarter is April to June. Or it could start on it could start on June 28th, and that's still the first quarter. I mean, that quarter that ends on June 30th. But this one that I got yesterday, it would be notice to proceed was for like yesterday, and the first quarter ends. Let me get this right. I should have brought a copy with me. It's May, June, July, August 14th. And May 4th, or May, whatever the date was, May 4th to August 14th. It ended up being like 15 weeks. And I said, wait a minute, what kind of a quarterly setup is this? I said, are you trying to spread out your workload or something? I said, so that you don't have this, rush at the end of each quarter. I haven't got an answer back. I just sent it back last night to question that. And I said, for those of us, like, we're a fiscal sponsor, and a fiscal sponsor's responsibility is to help an organization that does not have a back office, to help make sure that they follow the rules and do what they say they're going to do in the grant, and process the timely payments to them. And I mean, the interference is incredible right now in that process, because they want us to advance all the money for the payments. And it's like, there's nothing in any fiscal sponsor paperwork that says we're your bank.
Right.
And it's like, what the heck? And I said, but we've got maybe 30 to 32 grants we administer. And if you start changing orders to any day of the month, any month of the year, that's going to be a fiasco for us. We're going to have a whole new calendar set up just for end dates. And why?
Right.
And I'm anxious to hear. Should I let you know when I find out?
Yeah, please let me know. It's a really important thing, and as you said, as reimbursements, unfortunately, within the nonprofit community, we have always, and it shouldn't be this way, right? We are not banks, as you point out, but it's been a long-standing thing where you spent the money and then you got reimbursed, but the timing of the reimbursements is so greatly delayed that you're hampering the budget of the nonprofits. You're out a lot of money, and then you've got these really lean months while you're waiting for money to come in.
And that's what used to be the advantage of having that first advance. Because hopefully it was enough to get you started. Now, it makes a difference whether it's a year-long project or a one-time event.
Right.
Because sometimes there's one department that requires you to spend the money in 30 days if you get an advance. If it's a one-time event, you can't do that, because a lot of things you have to put down payments on, purchase at the right price kind of stuff to make it work. And that's not always within 30 days of getting the check or the event. Right. And like, wait, come on, let's be reasonable about these things. I don't know if is there anybody in the nonprofit world that's gone to work for the county could help them? I don't think I've seen. But
I think maybe we could give them a group of people. I think we need a brainstorming session and get a group of people together and talk about how these things actually work. Because we're hearing from so many nonprofits that they're experiencing some of these challenges, and we're experiencing them as well.
Right. I had one contract for an organization that was going to be doing a lot of work in a construction project. And it's like, because the construction itself was only going to take about 6 weeks, but it was a fairly good sized number. We're talking about it, several $100,000. And the original contract came out with 4 advancements so that we could pay them over that 6-week period, routinely.
Yeah.
That was the whole intent.
Right.
And the contract's good for a year, but it was going to be done in probably 2 months of getting the contract. I signed it, sent it back, and I get a call from the director of the department saying, Corp Counsel said we had to pull those other advancements. We can only give you one. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, that's not the way this was negotiated between you and the client, because we came in in the third hour as the fiscal sponsor for them. And I said, so are you telling them, or are you just going to tell me and let me break the news? And you're the fiscal sponsor, so you're the responsible party at this point. And I said, so what am I supposed to tell them? How are they going to get their money in a timely manner? And the bottom line was they expected us to advance that $100,000 for them. And I said, there's no way. I can't pull that out of my nonprofit.
Well, and how can they say that once you guys have already signed the contract?
Well, they didn't. They didn't sign the contract.
Well, they didn't sign their end, I see.
Yeah. Somebody at Corp Counsel caught it and said no. Now, there's an interesting twist in the contracts, and any nonprofits that might be listening, take a look at your contract, because I'm not an attorney. I don't think I probably could touch anything legal and be the authority. But it says it's based on the decisions of the officer in charge when it comes to advancements. And I don't think any Corp Counsel person is an officer in charge of this department or this grant. But
that's a really good thing to look at.
So I'm thinking
because the other thing is. Oh, I'm sorry, Susie, I cut you off. Go ahead, say that again.
I think maybe we need to start questioning that piece and finding out why is Corp Counsel running everything? I mean, that's what I'm seeing. Things get sent down, and it's always been the Corp Counsel has reviewed the grant after every different signature on the grant. I never understood that. What do they think we're all changing it, or what?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But and the other thing I would say too is also in the past when it was run by the department, and and you were working more with the department than Corp Counsel, but there used to be more flexibility in budget allocations if it was reasonable. If you were under in one area, and you could ask for reallocation, and it was, from what I'm hearing, it was much easier to do. So I know people are, really, they're, budget's meant to be a budget and your best estimate, but people are really trying to scrutinize every penny so that, they don't lose out on the planned county money, because it's so critical to the budget and making these things happen in our community.
Well, and it used to be that the director or the grants manager within that department could authorize a budget reallocation as long as it was in the same category. And I think we had 3 of them last year that all got sent down to Corp Counsel for review. And it has taken, matter of fact, I just got the check yesterday in the mail for one of our smaller grants. And it's paying the bill for, last August, I think. Wow. Because they bought a part for something that they needed to fix in place of something else, but it was in the same category. And it was okayed by the grant manager of that department. And then he said, oh, wait a minute, Corp Counsel needs to review it. And they went through 3 revisions of the amendment or addendum, whatever they call them, signed, sealed, and refused and returned for the next one to get it from August to now for $6,000.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
Now, that's insane. I'm sorry. There's just no rationale that can justify that.
No, that's true. Oh, my gosh. Well, I hate to leave it on that note but we do. It's time for us to bring on our other guests. But Susie, I appreciate the wealth of information. I appreciate hearing about this important housing project and getting the update, because the Ohana Assistance Program was really, the plan was to be streamlined, and the plan was to set this up in a way that once everybody was prepared and ready, it would expeditiously move forward. And for those who have been waiting, we feel for you. We're hoping that this keeps moving forward quickly now with the new changes. But there are some things I'm glad that you're bringing them up, because it's time that we need to talk about it, and we need to understand how things are moving through the county, how we can work together to get these agreements done right the first time. As I've listened to you, there's been several times where we're talking about, differences in contracting and payments and reallocations and just a number of challenges that seem to have escalated recently. And, we really need to kind of, I think, have a listening session with the nonprofits and the county and talk about some of these challenges and ways that we can best work together and, get to some, especially, understanding and boilerplate content that can be used over and over again, so we're not reinventing the wheel.
Pam, I think the challenge is that we have to all understand that we are in this to help those. The grants are for a multitude of things: basic needs, special needs, cultural events, whatever the case may be. We are all in this because we want to serve the community and make Maui a great place to live and grow families and the future. And I'm just not seeing that cohesiveness out there anymore. It used to be a great thing to work as a nonprofit person and be able to help folks, but it's just become such a challenge. I mean, on the wrong side, The county should be helping us do this, not monitoring everything that could go wrong. I mean, maybe they've had some issues. Maybe they have, but a lot of us have been around a long time, and we're right here doing the things we're supposed to be doing. And it's really taken the joy. I used to say that when we finished a project, a subdivision, all the things you go through in the construction process, you have some sleepless nights. But when I hand the keys to the family to their new house, and the little girl says, "Daddy, can I go up to my bedroom now?" That's wonderful.
It. I know. And we're delaying that.
Yeah, we're giving them the keys to the.
Yeah. Oh, Susie, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great pleasure to have you on, and we'll have you on again soon.
Okay.
And thank you for all that answer you do. Yeah, please do. I'd love to hear it. We'll have you back on.
Pleasure talking to you. Yeah.
Great talking to you, too. Thank you. Okay, aloha. I'm going to have aloha. As Gary reaches out to Jeff, I want to share a little bit about Jeff Pape, and he is the rental manager for Bacon Rentals, a division of Bacon Universal on Maui. And Jeff has over 32 years of experience in the equipment rental industry and has played a pivotal role in supporting local projects, including partnerships that contribute to community development initiatives, such as the Napili Community Bike Park. Bacon Rentals has been serving Hawaii's construction industry, industrial, and agricultural sectors since 1947. Gary, is Jeff on?
Yes, he is.
Good morning, Jeff, and welcome to the show.
Aloha.
Aloha. So great to have you with us. Well,
what a nice introduction.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I said, what a nice introduction.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Well, I was going to say I've heard a lot about Bacon Rentals over the years, but I'm really interested in learning what makes you different from some of the other rental companies on Maui.
Well, it's been an interesting journey. About midsummer last year, we acquired the building next door, and that's when we actually separated our rental business away from our dealership. So we're a dealership statewide actually for Komatsu and primarily Kubota. And we always had a rental division, but it was more earth-moving oriented. And once we took the building on next door and got a little more room, one of the biggest challenges is, for one, I'm sure no one on island has trouble hiring people. But keeping good techs is always a challenge. And then in the rental business, you need dedicated techs, and we have that now, and it's awesome. We have some great people working for us. But we've expanded a lot into the aerial, scissor lifts and boom lifts, and big telescopic forklifts to broaden our line. We have a lot of other things, but we've actually almost doubled our fleet in the last, actually about 10 months. So, it seems to be working well. We've got some great salespeople now. It's getting to be fun again. And even with all the turmoil and if you watch the news, there's lots to get upset about, but there's a lot of positive things on Maui. Construction is going forward. We were a big part of the cleanup in Lahaina. We brought in extra, it's a brand called Tenant, basically street sweepers to, do cleanup, and we geared up for that. We're all the rental companies on island are, trying to be there for Lahaina. I was just on Lanai, so my brain's crossed up.
I hear you.
We've been around since 1947, like you said, and we've got some great longevity. Our longest employee retired last month after 58 years in the same job. I'm working for the same company. It's pretty amazing. You just don't hear about that very often anymore.
That's true.
But, there's some exciting things happening. You mentioned Kubota. Thursday and Friday this week, there's a national promotion by Kubota, which they call Orange Days. And
love that.
There's special financing, special pricing, going to be food. Thursday and Friday come down between 9 and 3 pretty much. And there's going to be a lot of fun going on besides some great buys. On the rental side, we're running a promotion through the end of the month. If you haven't rented from us and you do a 1-month rental, we give you 20% off the first month. And if you haven't rented in a long time, you don't have to be brand new. We'll do the same thing. So lots of things going on here.
It sounds spectacular. With the invite to have everybody come down for the Kubota Orange Days, tell them where you're located.
We are on Alua Street. Both addresses is 800 or 816 Alua in Wailuku. And challenge is parking, but it'll be lots of fun. Sounds like we're done.
Oh, I'm sorry we ran a little bit over, but we are there. I'm so glad, though, that you were able to join us, Jeff. And I'm going to have you on again because we really didn't get to talk about all the things we wanted to talk about, but I appreciate that we were able to share the promotion. And we want everybody to go down to 800 or 816 Alua Street in Wailuku for Orange Days and special deals from Kubota, as well as you can have a special rental. So check them out. Get a 1-month rental and check out what they do.
Thanks,
all of you listening, thank you for joining us for Business Matters. This show went really quick and there was a lot to discuss, but we hope you have a beautiful Maui day and join us next Tuesday. Ahui ho.